Keith's hoodie is fire.
Is there like exactly that many chairs?
She has 75 chairs,
Okay.
plus the teachers.
Just come in, either stick your backpacks underneath your chairs or find a spot over here. Nobody else is coming into the library this block.
Great.
Okay.
Who knows? Their teacher's not even me.
Yeah.
Share with me soon.
We're in safe.
Probably this was at 105. A lot of people probably didn't come down like around that time.
That would make sense.
Weren't this scared of the book launch?
No, I knew everyone at the
You
book
knew
launch.
everyone, yeah.
And there was like half as many people.
Just pretend.
Yeah, I feel like some people are gonna probably come down like at 105.
Probably.
Short.
If people come in late, I guess just like direct them in.
Short and light?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the
For those who are coming in, if you can fit your backpacks under your chairs, great. Otherwise, find a spot over here for them, okay? Just because we still have quite a few coming in. We'll get started in about 3 minutes.
Heads.
Okay, guys. You got the fancy microphones? She should be coming. I have her number. She said she was coming, but I don't know. Got it. She should be coming. I'm actually looking for her because I haven't seen her yet. And she was like, I don't know if this driver's gonna let me leave.
Oh, that would suck. You gotta put your smile on.
See, but now I'm looking through all these questions. And I'm like, wow,
Sit there so you
some
can
of
get
them are really good.
I did that while you were.
Yeah. If there's time.
It's gonna be great.
But some people might also ask the questions that we
Yeah,
can.
like,
you want
how did you
something
feel when you
to
found out
go
his business
under it?
New York Times bestseller?
Yeah.
How did you feel? I want to know. What is this?
Sometimes you should make it, they come back towards the end too, like
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Also, like,
Circle around.
circle questions.
Yes.
Or like if they come up in
yeah.
Exactly.
Or if like another question gets answered, we could always just like if one of our questions on here gets answered, we could always just pick another one from our section.
Yeah.
So wait, is
See,
mine-
that's when
is
you
that
really
also,
throw a dart at
Is that part
the.
of your section or part of my section? I think it's part of your section.
It's its own thing that never got used.
Okay.
So you can have it.
I'll claim it.
Adoption.
Are you a Game of Thrones?
I have never watched.
I'm a Game of Thrones.
Oh, you wrote that one.
Yup.
Yeah, she's got it in. Me neither. Look at us, uncultured.
It's a heavy show, isn't it?
It's crazy.
Yeah, everyone's dying.
Yeah. I've seen like 2 episodes of House of the Dragon.
I haven't seen any episodes.
All right, we're going to get started. And then if, he's not here. We're going to get started. We have another couple minutes. Actually, this will be good while he's running, Mr. Corpora's running and getting stuff. I do want to just give a little plug for Curious Iguana. Has anybody been to Curious Iguana? So it's the independent bookstore in downtown Frederick. It's right on Market Street. Let's see, what's it next to? It's next to the Voila Tea Shop. And it is a great little place to visit. And summer's coming up, and downtown Frederick's a really fun place to walk around. So I'd encourage you to take a look. But they gave, I put that link out for anybody who'd like to order a book. They gave us a discount. So they're very committed to celebrating local authors and schools and teachers and students. So they didn't ask me to say that. I just felt like we were just talking over here about getting the books from Curious Iguana, and I felt like it was important to mention that they were very much excited that we were hosting this event today. And they also were a sponsor of Michelle's book launch last month. So they very much are here for local authors and are a great store and company to support. Okay, so we are here to welcome Michelle Jabés Corpora, And she's back here next to Mr. Corpora. Let's give her a big round of applause. Michelle, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Before I turn things over to my good friends up front, I want to review just a couple of things that I don't think any of you necessarily need to hear, but I think it's important to know. First, be respectful and attentive, okay? Give your full attention. You are not in fourth block. You are in the library, and that is an exciting place to be. And so that also make sure you're refraining from side conversations. This should be a no-brainer, but please make sure devices and AirPods are away. Okay? So give Michelle your full attention and have those phones silenced and put away. Engage with curiosity. So we are going to follow a relatively standard author talk in which we have some moderated questions, and then in about a half an hour to 40 minutes into the talk, we will open the questions up to the audience. So pay close attention, think about what you're wondering, and be ready with some questions if you'd like to ask. Participate thoughtfully. If you choose to ask a question, keep it brief. Okay, I love all of you, but we are not here for your question. We are here to hear from Michelle. So make sure that you ask the question and give her the time to answer the question. Show appreciation. I'm not going to even read this because I know that you will. And finally, be a positive representative of OHS. Represent our school with maturity, curiosity, and kindness. That being said, I am going to turn things over to Bailey, Maya, and Madison, who graciously offered to moderate our talk today. So I'm done. Take it away.
Hi, so how are you doing today? Welcome to
I'm great. Very happy to be here with you all.
All right, let's jump right into it. You all right with that?
I'm ready.
Okay. So you can make sure everyone here is on the same page. Can you give like a brief elevator pitch of your book?
Yes, I can. So His Face is the Sun is the first book in a trilogy, and it's an ancient Egyptian-inspired fantasy about 4 heroes, a princess, a priestess, a rebel, and a thief, who are joined by a forgotten oracle. And together the 4 of them must work to save the kingdom from destruction.
And so what were your inspirations for the 4 main characters? How'd you come up with them?
Well, with this book, I really wanted to highlight ancient Egypt and its history. Even though this is a fantasy novel, a lot of the world of Katara, the series is called Throne of Katara, is based heavily on actual history. And so in order to do that, I wanted to have 4 different characters that are very, very different and from different places in the kingdom, so the readers get to experience all different walks of life in this place. And I was also really inspired by Game of Thrones, because the spark for this whole series was to write ancient Egyptian Game of Thrones. And so Game of Thrones has many different points of view, and each of the points of view feeds into different plot lines. So like in Game of Thrones, you have the plot to get the throne, and then you have the White Walkers, which is like the supernatural threat. And similarly, in my book, there is a plot for the throne and also a supernatural threat, which I don't want to give too much away about, but I wanted each of the 4 characters to be able to feed into those plots slowly throughout the series. So the princess, I mean, who doesn't want to see the inside of the Pharaoh's palace and see everything they wore and everything they ate and all of how luxurious and golden everything was? So that's her, and her point of view is very much about court intrigue, and there's some romance in there, and that was her kind of voice. I also wanted the 4 voices to be really, really different from each other. The second one is the priestess, and she gave us insight into the temples and the religion and the gods and all of the rituals that they used to do, which I find super, super interesting. The third one is the rebel, and with her, I wanted to show what life was like for the regular people. When you learn about ancient Egypt, most of the time you just learn about royalty and who was king when. But I wanted to show somebody from a city that was oppressed and dealing with, having to live under the yoke of the king and fighting against that. And the last one was my tomb robber, my thief. And for him, I love like Indiana Jones and the Mummy, and when you think about ancient Egyptian stories, most of the time it's about somebody in like 1940, going in and digging up tombs and there being mummies and all of that. And I love that, and I wanted to have an element of that, and that was what his character brought. But I also wanted to show people how long ancient Egypt lasted. It was 5,000 years. And so at the time of this story, there's thousands of years of history before. So you can have a tomb robber who's digging up tombs in an ancient kingdom. So I wanted to show that, that it's hard for us to even imagine how many years that was. Like if you think about from the year 0 to right now, 2025 years, that's half of ancient Egypt's history, which is crazy, right? That's all of our known history. So there you go, very long answer to your question.
These are all really fascinating characters. And with this multi-perspective take on it, was there a certain character that was the hardest to write compared to the others, and one that was way easier to write than some of the others?
I mean, I loved all of them for different reasons, but Kareem, my tomb robber, was maybe the most fun because he is sort of like the charming, lovable rogue type, is sort of like, oh my God, what's happening to me? I'm just being chased by monsters, kind of. He was fun. It was less serious, maybe, than the other three. But the priestess, her name is Neferma'at. I just listened to the audiobook version, so I have the pronunciations in my head. I love learning about all the gods and the religion. I think what we learn as the general public, we know about like Anubis and the mummies and all of that, but there's so much there to learn about, and not only who the gods were, but the way that they worshiped them. And that was really enjoyable to do the research for that part.
So how much research did you have to go through?
A lot. A lot. I really enjoyed doing like a multifaceted research, so like watching movies, reading stuff on the internet. There's so many books that, especially old books, that are just scanned that you can get from public libraries and museums and stuff that you can read, and it feels very cool. I know I'm just looking on the internet, but finding a book that from 1935 about ancient Egyptian magic that no one's ever heard of is cool and fun. And I enjoyed doing that. And there was also this fantastic lecture series about the whole history of ancient Egypt. It was 24 hours long. And I just listened to it while I was walking the dog and cooking and stuff. And I listened to it twice over. So that was really great because just, reading, watching, listening, it's all the different ways to take in information. And that really helped me imagine this story.
And it turned out very well.
Oh, thank you.
And so switching tracks a little bit, where do you see not just the book, but the series going in the future?
Oh, well, I've already written the second one. So it's currently with my editor. I'm waiting for notes back. That's how, the process, I'll write a first draft of the whole thing and send it to my editor, and time will pass, and when she sends it back to me, that's what we call a developmental edit. So the first edit is here's everything that is dealing with the story as a whole. The pacing is a little bit slow here, or this character's development needs to have more in the middle of the book, or this scene it needs to be longer, things that are big like that. And I'll do all those revisions and send it back. And then the next pass is more granular. Then it's cut this line, can we say this a different way? Can we, tighten this chapter a little bit more, that kind of thing. So the changes to the book get smaller with every version until it's done. So I've written the second one, and right now I am in planning stages of the third one.
Ooh, very exciting.
Thank you.
Okay. Speaking of your new book, it's a definite genre shift from your last series, Holly Horror, which was more of a horror paranormal series. So how does it feel to switch from horror to this new fantasy?
It's very interesting. I work in publishing, and I'm sort of an editor, and I come up with stories. I don't know if you guys are I guess you guys are kind of the right age, but like the company that I work for, that I create stories with, is the company that made Warrior Cats. You guys probably know, some of you know Warrior Cats, right? Okay, so so I work on teams that come up with stories, and I've done that for 14 years now. So I'm kind of used to writing in different genres, coming up with like storylines. We don't actually write the books ourselves, but we work on creating the stories. So, but in my writing career, I started doing ghostwriting mysteries, and then I did some historical, and then the Holly Horror series was horror, like gothic horror. And so this book is my first fantasy, but it really does combine all of those things together. Like, it does have a sort of mystery element. It definitely has horror. And obviously it has a lot of historical fiction. So I wouldn't say it's that much of a leap for me. It was more the creating a fantasy world within like a historical basis. So it was great. I loved it. It was my favorite book to write ever.
And does your writing process change at all depending on like what genre you're working on, or does it stay mostly the same?
I would say that I've been sort of honing my process over the course of the past 10 years. So right now, and this is something that I've learned doing that concept development at my job, where I start with a pitch. And the pitch for this was Ancient Egyptian Game of Thrones. It's literally like, what is 6 words, whatever. And from there, I make a synopsis. And the synopsis is maybe like 4 or 5 pages describing the entire book from start to finish. Like, here's basically everything that happens. And then that's where I am right now on the 3rd one. And from there, I make a chapter outline. So then it's breaking that synopsis in. Okay, this is his point of view, her point of view, this is what happens. And then when that is done, that's only then do I start writing the book. So that process is pretty much locked up for every book, yeah, no matter what it is.
Yeah, and when you're like doing the writing itself, do you ever get like writer's block, and how do you deal with that?
I don't get writer's block because I make an outline.
See, that's
yeah,
smart.
I mean, I used to have crippling like paralyzation when it came to writing when I was younger, and for many, I mean, I've wanted to be a writer since I was, I don't know, like in elementary school. So, but when I was, just out of college and trying to put together things, I could not finish a single book ever. It was like something that I dealt with for many years, to the point where I was like, I don't think I can ever be a writer because I can't follow through. But coming up with this process of starting with a small idea and making it bigger and sort of figuring out all of the different parts I needed to know, it just solved that problem forever. And so I do have difficult days. I get myself into a corner for sure. I don't want it to sound like it's easy, but I also have very good brainstorming partners like my husband, your favorite teacher over there. So that really helps, because sometimes when you're in the middle of a really big, complicated project, you can't see the forest for the trees, as they say, and you get really stuck. And sometimes even in just describing the problem to a different person, I solve it in my head, or they say something, I go, oh, of course, like, how did I not see that? So, writing can be isolating because you're doing it all alone and you're in your head, but it is really important to have other people on your team to talk things out with and to have share ideas, and that really helps when you're in a bind.
Yeah, speaking of which, do you have any other like advice to like aspiring writers? Like, if there's anyone who wants to write, like, what would you say to them?
I would say be disciplined, and for me, the biggest thing was taking my own personal value out of the process, where you write something and then you look at it and it goes, it's bad, I'm bad, why am I doing this? I really try to disassociate myself and my personal value from what I'm writing. So if I write something, the first version is not going to be perfect. It might not even be good. But the point is that it exists and you can fix it. You know, it's just like if you're a carpenter and you're making a table. You know, if the table is wonky and it's a little uneven, you don't just throw the whole table away. You go, okay, well, how do I fix it? How do I balance this project? How do I make it better? How do I polish it, make it look good? It's the same thing. And I think with writing, it can be very, like, it's just you and it's your heart and it's your feelings and it's very, very personal. And that can make it impossible to make it better because it feels like, oh my God, you know, it's an attack on you. But it's an art and it's separate from you as soon as you put it out on the paper. And the more you can think of it that way, I think the easier it is to work on it and to get better.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and as you said, that ancient Egypt was a huge inspiration for this book. What did the world building look like, and were there any specific sort of things that you based the setting off of?
What did the world building? So I think my favorite part of the world building, because a lot of it is based on history, was learning about magic. And I think that part, although we think about ancient Egypt as being a very kind of mysterious and magical kingdom, I think a lot of how they thought about magic itself is not really known. And so reading about that and about how, you know, in most fantasy nowadays, magic it's supernatural, obviously. It is like the people that do it are sort of shunned, right? You know, if you have power, then, oh, you're different and they're going to punish you or they're going to put you in jail or whatever it is. And even in history, you know, witches, right? Witches were ostracized from society. But in ancient Egypt, magic was completely the opposite. It was part of nature. It wasn't supernatural. It was natural. There was magic in everything. Magic was the world. And beyond that, the people who performed magic were the people in the highest echelons of society. The pharaoh had, you know, was magical, like they were born magical. And the priests who did magic, they were right under the pharaoh. They were the magic was only for the highest level of people. It was for people who had the most power. It was power. And so that was really interesting to learn. And, you know, how they cast spells and what the spells were like. And that was just their entire religion, beyond just, you know, this guy has a hawk for a head, you know. It was so complex and interesting. And that was a big discovery for me when it happened, yeah.
The prophecy sort of like drives the characters down like a river of fate. How did you come up with the idea for it?
The prophecy, the oracle, it's called the Oracle of the Lamb, is real. So I didn't really come up with it, although I did reshape it for the story. I was doing research, and I don't know if I had just searching for things with prophecies or whatever, and I came across this, you know, this article online about the Oracle of the Lamb, and it's this prophetic text that they found somewhere. It's just in pieces, you know. It's from 4 AD, and it's incomplete. So I read the parts that they have, but there's words missing. You know, it was falling apart when they found it. But it's an oracle about, you know, a lamb warning the king of Egypt about this coming destruction and all these terrible things that were going to happen. And I thought, well, okay, that's like perfect. So I sort of took that, I rewrote what it said to fit what I wanted. But, you know, one of the most fun things about the book for me was that so much of it has basis in reality. So it's like, it is fantasy, but it's amazing because it's true to some degree, you know. And this was just my way of saying, what would it have been like? What could have happened within that space? So yeah.
It's amazing.
If you look it up right now on Google, you'll find it.
Your writing style is very distinct, but are there any like authors that you were inspired by, or who are your literary heroes?
I really love mystery. So I'm really into Agatha Christie. I appreciate how popular she was and how much disrespect she had to deal with, and how now she's one of the most read people in history. So I really enjoy her. I read a lot of Japanese authors that I doubt any of you have ever heard of. But Japanese literature is really interesting because it's very simple and beautiful. The language is not like a million words and really over-described and everything. And I really try to write like that, even though it's 530 pages, you wouldn't know. But I do try to write simply and make it easier for people to see and understand this world, because it's very different than a normal fantasy world that people are used to with, you know, dragons and knights and things. And so it was important to me to write in a way where it was easy to see everything and to understand how the world worked, but it was not bogging down the action with like a bunch of info dumps where you're like, oh God, you know, how much more of this do I have to read before something happens? So yeah, I do try to emulate Japanese authors in that way.
As you've said, your family's inspired you a lot. How specifically did they motivate you and help you throughout writing His Face is the Sun?
Oh, well, my parents and 3 of my grandparents were born in Egypt, and they were immigrants to the country. And so my sister and I are first-generation Americans. And so when I grew up, we ate Egyptian food, and there was Egyptian stuff all over the house, and you know, that was where they grew up. And so there was so many stories about, you know, my dad went to the pyramids for a field trip. You know, it was really amazing. And you know, as me, I was just some very young, awkward nerd. And I thought, this is the most interesting thing about me, you know, just this story and the history. And so I was really fascinated by the ancient history for my whole life. And it was only at this point in time where I felt like I had the skills to be able to like really do this series the way I wanted to. So it was a long time in coming, I think.
That's amazing. And then before you started writing, or while you were writing it, did you already have the idea for the ending in mind?
Yes. So I know, like, I have known the last chapter of the last book so crystal clear in my head for a year. And I get very like teary-eyed every time I think about it. But you know, in some ways writing a book is just knowing how it starts and then knowing how it ends and then just figuring out how do you connect those two things. So yes, I have known how it ends for a long time.
It's amazing.
Thank you.
And so obviously His Face is the Sun is a New York Times bestseller. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So how did you feel when you found out that it was on the list?
I was very overwhelmed. So they let you know these things on Wednesday evenings. That's when the list is released. And a lot of times the publishers will find out a few hours before. So there's this like weird time of like 2 hours where it might happen or might not, and you're just sitting there by your phone being like, ugh. So the first time I had kind of given up because I thought it was going to come around 4, and it was like 5:30. I was like, oh, it's okay. What am I even thinking? It's crazy. So I was just watching a show, and they called me, and it was like, you know, 6 people on the phone on the FaceTime. And I mean, it was unbelievable. And then Adam came home, and my daughter filmed him coming home and me telling him the news, and I posted it online, and it has 3 million views. So if you guys want to see the moment that I told Mr. Corpora about this, you can join the 3 million people who have seen it. So it was really crazy. I've never had anything like that happen. I'm not in any way an influencer at all. So this was very strange. The whole thing was very, very strange, but incredible. So, yes.
And you've gotten obviously multiple books before. Where do you see your career like going in the future? Will you obviously continue writing? But
I just hope to keep. I really love writing about ancient Egypt and like in this fantasy way. And it seems like a lot of people are really interested, and there's not a lot of it out there. So I'm hoping after the series is done to do more things in this vein, either a different series or a prequel or like some kind of nonfiction book about ancient Egyptian mythology. It's really something I've always wanted to do. But yeah, I just want to keep doing it.
All of the character relationships were super complex. Was there anyone that was your favorite to write, and where do you see them going?
There is a character in the book who is one of the royal triplets who seems to be a fan favorite, and I would love to do something with him in the future. He is a little bit of a detective type because I love detective shows. Obviously the Agatha Christie thing. I watch like British murder mystery shows about villages where everyone dies every day. I really love mysteries. I think that they're so cleverly created. And so I would love to do something with that character in the future.
Okay, so with your novel, of course, you gain a lot of inspiration from Egypt. Were any of your characters inspired by people you knew?
Yes. I do jujitsu. I have been doing it for 9 years. And so the rebel is a fighter, and she's very tough and goes through a lot. And I do jujitsu with a lot of women as well as men, but I'm always so impressed by these. Some of the people I train with are like world champion grapplers. And so that character of the rebel is very heavily inspired by the women that I train with and how awesome they are. So yeah, and there's others as well, but that's the one I think of.
And of your main characters, if you had to use like one word to describe each of them, what would that word be?
Oh, okay. The princess, passionate. The priestess, she's faithful. The rebel, powerful. And the tomb robber, he's charming.
You said like it's been heavily inspired by Game of Thrones. Did you find any of the characters to be similar?
I tried. I will admit, I have not read all of the books. So I actively tried not to make anything that felt like an imitation. So, no, I really tried not to do that because I know that sometimes, there are some things that I couldn't help it that, people have said that certain scenes really reminded them of Aladdin, like the original Disney Aladdin. And I didn't do that on purpose per se, but I thought, as soon as I heard it, oh God, yeah, absolutely. I guess that was in my head. And the movie The Mummy, that was a huge favorite of mine. So I probably subconsciously put in, like things that I remembered and parts that I loved into the story.
Okay. And so when you sit down to write, do you have like a routine? Like, do you listen to music while you do it? Do you have like a cup of tea?
I do have, I really like these YouTube channels of, they're sort of ambient music, because I can't listen to anything with a melody or words. Words, I don't know how anybody could write with words happening, but even a melody, it throws me off because then I'm focusing on the melody. But the ambient music, there are like channels that play, ancient Egyptian temple music, and I love listening to that stuff. It's very calming, and I can't write in silence. I think I used to, but I definitely cannot do that anymore. And I have my office, and the dog generally comes and stays with me. I light a candle sometimes. But yeah, the music is a definite.
And I think if you're ready for it, we're going to start opening up to audience
Sure.
questions. Right, so does anyone have a question they want to ask? Right here.
Yeah.
So you said when you were younger, you used to like have trouble finishing your books.
Yes.
How did you like overcome
I think that it really happened when I started ghostwriting. I sort of fell into that, and I'm not supposed to talk about exactly what I wrote, although afterwards I can tell you. So that was sort of something where I got this job, and they said, okay, deliver a book by this date. And I was like, oh God, you know. So being sort of forced into having a deadline, as opposed to my own personal deadline, which I could break at any time, really kind of focused me into saying, you know, how do I do this process in a way that works? And through my work, I also learned a process, the process I described. And having an outline, and I mean, for these particular books that I ghost wrote, it was like, okay, it's 12 chapters, and it's this many words, because that's how long these books are. So that's what you need to make. And that was helpful. Having boundaries is very helpful, because I mean, you're writing a book. It's like, it could be anything, you know, it could be literally anything. And that is paralyzing. That's like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And so giving yourself boundaries, you know, in my case, how many chapters, how many words by this date, and then saying, okay, I'm going to make a chapter outline. It's 12 chapters. Okay, I know how it starts. I know how it ends. Okay, how do I get, you know, through there? And I still work like that to this day. I write in chapter 1, a few lines, this is what happens. I write in epilogue, whatever chapter, and then I just move to the middle. And, you know, if you need to add in some extra chapters, fine. And having that before you actually sit and write a word, for me, was essential. Not everybody works like that, though. Some people like to sit down and just go. But my brain does not do that. So that's what did it for me. Yeah.
Make sure to repeat their question.
Oh.
Because they're not mic'd.
Oh, sorry.
Just for the sake of
Okay.
When you know your ending to your book, can you go over like how you structure it from the beginning to the end, like how you plan out your story?
Yeah, so and at the end I will share, I brought 5 of my favorite writing books to show you guys, because they're like the books that I think are the most important things. If you want to be a writer, like these are the best books to read. But in writing, there's 3-act structure. And in Act 1, it's sort of like, here's the world, here's where we are at the beginning of the story, and then here's the thing that launches us into the actual plot. And it's short. And then your Act 2 is long. So the Act 2 is like, here's the entire, you know, rising action, climax, and then denouement. So it's like a falling action into the end. And then Act 3 is that ending, is like, it's right after the climax, and you go, okay, so how do we get to the end? And that's really in my mind when I'm making these outlines of like, okay, you know, balance out. You think of how you are as a reader when, you know, at the beginning you need to be placed in the world. You need to understand who you should care about and what's going on in their life. And then as soon as you know that, then it's like, okay, here's the adventure. Here's everything that's going to happen, and the ups and downs and the twists and turns and all of that. And then you're building to this, oh my God, this huge event. And then as soon as that's over, you say, okay, how do I wrap it all up? How do they call it, how do you deliver the promise of the premise? The premise is what you introduce at the beginning. If it's a murder mystery, it's like, okay, here's a detective, somebody gets killed. Who did it, right? That's your premise. And by the end, in the ending, you have to have delivered upon that promise. You say, okay, here's who it is, and here's how they did it, and here's why. And so all of those things are kind of part of how you structure the thing from beginning to end. Yeah, but I will definitely share these books with you. They're super, super helpful. Yeah.
So how do you develop your characters?
I think with character, I don't really write like huge long diatribes about who they are and all of that. I'll just do something really basic at the beginning. Like, I know what this character needs to accomplish in the book. And then who they are and their sort of internal motivations and all of that, that gets developed through the process of writing the book, you know, and the process of the outline. Because really, their actions matter first, right? Like, what do I need them to do? And then I have to ask myself, is this a person that would take those actions? And if so, what kind of person would do that, right? So, like, you know, because you want your character to seem real. And in order to do that, you have to have them make choices that make sense for that person. And when you, and you know, and in the process of that, you go, oh, well, they're motivated by wanting to impress their father, or they're motivated by wanting to be free of, you know, the constraints of their life, like, because that's what you discover has driven all the things that they've done in your book. So that's really, for me, I know some people, they love to sort of develop this whole backstory for their person, and I play Dungeons & Dragons, so I've learned that in Dungeons & Dragons too. Like, I don't write a huge long backstory, I just start playing the character, I see what I want them to do, and then I say, oh, well, this is the kind of person that they are, and this is why they're doing that. And that works better for me because it feels more natural and it feels more organic, and it helps make the character authentic, because the things you've chosen for them to do to make your plot work, then they seem right, because they're like, oh yeah, of course they would do that, even if it's a sort of a wild choice. If you've built the character to be a person that would make that wild choice, it makes sense. So yeah, that's how I do it. Yeah.
How'd you go with the cover?
I didn't do that. So the publisher generally will hire a professional illustrator to do the cover. And I was very, very lucky. The guy's name is Tom Roberts. He's on Instagram if you want to look at his other work. And he's, I think he's English. He lives in England. And he did an amazing job. And he's going to be doing the second one as well. So he also did the design for the edges, which is amazing. But yeah, you know, that works by, you know, I'll send them some ideas that I have of, like, you know, I didn't want people on the cover. I wanted that to be sort of imagined in the reader's mind. So I said, I don't want people. I don't want it to be all black in the background, because I see too many books that look like that. I wanted it to have gold, and I wanted it to be very, like, symbolic. And I gave him some ideas of the symbols that I wanted, like the snakes and the scarab and all of that. And we went through a couple rounds where he would share, like, sketches, and then this beautiful thing happened. So yeah, it's a fun collaboration when you work with a publisher, that you end up working with artists too, and they help bring it all to life. Hi.
Do you have, like, an estimate on how long it took to, like, make the book and, like, the thought process of it?
9 months. Yes, I had to figure it all out, because I wanted to make sure I could write the second one in the time that I was given. And I thought it was longer, but it was 9 very busy months. Yeah. Yeah.
This kind of goes along with that. Did you have like a daily word count or like amount of time that you put into
I
it?
try to write 1,000 words a day when I'm in my, like, zone. And I'm pretty diligent and hard on myself about it, but I have learned over the course of this book, well, actually more over the course of the second one, to, like, be okay if I need a day off. But he's like, have you? Have you though? I'm trying to learn to be better about that. But one of these books, actually, a Stephen King book, he wrote this book on writing. He talks about, he said this just random line about, if you write 1,000 words a day, in 3 months you'll have 150,000 words.
1,000 a day?
Yeah, no, 90,000 words.
90,000.
My brain is okay. 90,000 words. Right. So, I mean, that's a full novel for sure. And I just thought, 3 months, that's crazy. But 1,000 words a day it's a lot, but it's doable. And I just thought, oh my goodness, he's right, you know, you could write an entire novel in 3 months. And that inspired me to make that, and it's also easy to keep track of, you know, you just can look at how many days you have until your deadline, and then you're just like, okay, well, that would be this many words. So I tried to stick to it. I tried to not drive myself into the ground doing it, but it's hard. When it's over and I've finished the first draft of something, I have about 2 to 4 weeks of just complete intellectual collapse where I just lay around and can't talk very clearly a little bit. That's where I am now. I'm getting out of that now. It's been about a month since I finished the last one. I'm just beginning to have clear conversations again. But yeah, it's a wild ride. Yeah.
How do you incorporate your characters' motivations to drive the plot forward?
Good question.
What was it?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not doing what you asked at all. How do you incorporate your characters' motivations to drive the plot of the story? Is that what you said? Okay. I think it comes out in their internal thoughts and their dialogue with other characters. And I try not to rely too heavily on the internal thought, because it can feel very labored, like you're just dumping all of their, you know, emotions into these, you know, long paragraphs of what they're thinking. But it should be incorporated into the action of the scene. So the scene has to have a reason to drive the plot forward in a real way. But as the scene is happening, you know, they're thinking about what they're doing and they're talking with other people, and their motivations come out in those moments because they're making choices at every point in the story. And to make those choices, you know, they're grappling with themselves. They're saying, you know, what should I do? Why am I doing this? And discussing that with other people who may disagree. And in that disagreement emerges what they want and what's driving them and why. So it really, you know, it has to be completely enmeshed with the plot itself to feel natural and to feel like, you know, that you're not just shoehorning it in for the readers, you know, so that, you know, it makes sense. Yeah. It takes revision too. Like, I think that I have accomplished something in the first draft, and then I go back to read it again, and I'm like, oh, that did not come across. I need to work on that. So, you know, a lot of times it's like weaving yarn, like when you're crocheting things, and the yarn goes in and out, and sometimes, you know, there's loose threads, and you've left it there, and you go, oh no, I need to connect this with that, and you don't see that until the second read or the third read, because it's extremely complex. And so it's like I said earlier about like being patient with your craft and not expecting it to be perfect right away. It takes time and it takes patience to weave all of the elements of your story together. Yeah?
Can you go about naming your characters? Like, are they symbolic, or do they have some sort of reference to something?
How do I go about naming my characters? So in this book, a lot of the character names are real characters who are mentioned in ancient Egyptian history. Some of them I've sort of pieced together myself, but all of them are, I mean, Kareem is a real Arabic name, and it was inspired by somebody that I know. But the other ones, and all of the Qataran or ancient Egyptian names, are built with bits of ancient Egyptian vocabulary. So like Nef or Ma'at is a combination of Nef, which means beauty, and Ma'at, which is the goddess of order and justice. And so it's kind of means beautiful justice, which has to do with her character. And Re Atawe has to do with the god Re, Ra. which is the god of the sun, which has to do with her character. And Sita Amun and her brothers are Mary Amun and Bakan Amun. Amun is the god of that part of the kingdom. And so all their names have to do with, beloved of Amun, daughter of Amun, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, they all, I may have not chosen every single one with a meaning in mind, but definitely the main characters are all related in some way to ancient Egyptian significance. Yeah.
If this book was to be like made into a movie or a show, how do you think you want it to be like depicted?
We talk about that a lot.
We do. I do have a film agent for this book. I'm jumping ahead of myself. I mean, initially I was like, oh, it should be a show because there's so many points of view. But I just, the movies that I still to this day love the most are those, older movies like Indiana Jones and The Mummy, and there's a lot of serious things that it deals with, but the sort of overall tone is just positive, and like makes you feel good to like, you love the characters, and it's just a big adventure, and you're just, at the edge of your seat, and there's, all the beautiful clothes. I mean, the beautiful clothes is probably what I would look forward to the most. But yeah, just a big, exciting adventure. I feel like people need that right now, and it's just something to just feel excited and feel good about would be what I would want it to be.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You mentioned occasionally taking a day off and trying to be okay with yourself for taking a day off.
Yeah.
So does that mean when you're in writing mode, that's a 7-day-a-week endeavor?
Yes. What?
I was just thinking about her question. Yeah, it's every day.
It's every day, yeah. Yeah, I mean, when I'm in that mode, it's hard to disconnect because it's kind of going through my head all the time. And so when I do those 1,000 words, I feel relieved. I feel like I can do other things after that because I've, kind of hooked into that world for the day, and then I can move away from it a little bit. But I need to feel that sort of the speed of it keeping, it's like if you stop the car completely and it's like, well, I have to, get it up the hill, I have to do it again. I just want to keep it going, and it's so much easier to just get the work done than, I can't even imagine a week off in the middle of a book. That's unthinkable. Unthinkable. Yeah, I have to just keep going. Yeah.
Michelle, before we wrap things up, just because I really liked hearing the answer to this in your book launch, can you talk us through the titles or the title of your
I can tell you the second one, but
You can.
yeah, well, that's I can't tell you the third one.
I know, but can you tell everybody about like the process of choosing the title and what happened with your editor?
Oh, yeah. So, I had like a working title that was something with the Oracle of the Lamb for the series when it sold, but now I'm like, I don't know if I want. This is gonna go. I don't know if I don't want to give it away.
You didn't give it away at the launch.
What did I say about the three?
You said if you read carefully, you'll be able to piece it together, but you didn't say what, you didn't verbally say what it was.
Okay.
But you can say the first.
Well, yeah, so this one is His Face of the Sun. The second one is called She Knows All the Names. So, but
If you read it, you can piece together.
yeah, it's a naming convention that if you read the book, you'll figure it out. But they do like big reveals, so I don't know if I want to say it. Yeah. Oh, before we stop, I wanted to show you these 5 books because if any of you guys ever want to be writers, I feel like you should read these. The first one is Stephen King. It's written really well. It's called Unwriting. So the first part of it is about his life and how he became a writer. And then the second half is like all about what he believes is important when you write. So it's really just an interesting read. It's really easy to read and extremely important to me. So that was a good one. This is a classic. this is just, you have to get through this. The Elements of Style, it's really important rules of just how to write in a way that engages with people. So it's more of a nonfiction type of, it's not as entertaining as this, but it's very important. That one. The War of Art, this is a new favorite. This is just for anybody, even Adam has read this. Anybody who wants to accomplish anything, which is all of you, should read this, especially artists. It is just about resistance and the resistance to create that everyone has when they try to accomplish great things and how to combat it in your life. So it's not very long. You have to read this one, amazing. This one, I believe my dog must have gotten so you can't see it. This is by Robert McKee. This is like the Bible of story. It is meant for movie writing, but it's just for all story in general. Just what you were asking about, like how do you balance a story? How do you structure it? This is what you want to read. It goes into different genres and how that changes how you structure a story. It's so good, so good. I would read it again in a heartbeat. And then the last one, this is new. This is something somebody gave me. I just really love it. John Steinbeck is the author of The Grapes of Wrath. I don't know if you guys read that in high school, but this is a journal it's letters that he wrote to his editor while he was writing the book East of Eden, which is an American classic. And I love it because it makes you understand what it's like to be a writer. And he's one of the greatest American writers, and just hearing him talk about how hard it is and his daily struggles made me feel like, wow, like we all deal with the same stuff. And it's also very easy to read, and highly recommend, just to make you feel like, we're all the same. We're all trying to struggle through the same thing. So those are my recommendations, and that's it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for all your questions, and thank you guys for being here.
Okay. And we have time for you all to meet Michelle, and I know that she'd love to do a little penmanship in your book.